Daddy Mac. Dang's 30 years got our way, trading life and markets every day. Rusty's chained to the mines, digging deep day by day. But when Option Omega releases new features, he's free to come out and play. Option Omega, you're trading home, where every move makes you feel less alone.
Got to fix that cutoff every time. It's a hard cutoff at the end. So,
Get that fade.
welcome back, Matt, to the show.
Good morning.
Good
Happy
morning.
Tuesday, everybody. Holiday week.
Yeah.
Happy
Yeah.
4th. Happy 3rd. Wait, it's not just a holiday week. Markets closed on Friday.
Yes.
So before anybody asks, if you have a trade that doesn't go on, you're using an exact DTE, check to see Friday. But isn't the market also closed Thursday, part of the day as well? Early day Thursday?
Yeah, I don't know if it's 1 or 2 o'clock. It closes Eastern.
Dan, what were those days like? What was a holiday week like on the floor?
Well, it was how the thing is, if you were on the floor, or is Tom here?
Say it. Yeah.
Shout out, Tom. Hope you're here.
Can I just say this real quick? I used to go to, I love basketball. I love high school basketball. In the summer, I used to go to all the pros and the college players from Chicago would come and play at some of these leagues, right? And you'd have this. So we'd go to like Malcolm X or some place, and we'd go watch basketball. They'd have an announcer for these games because you didn't know. It's not like their jersey was on the, you see guys in from Europe, and the guy would say all the time, he'd go, "In the house." Like if he'd see a guy coming in, with his Coke or something, "In the house from Chicago." This guy, so in the pits. Yeah. So
in the pits, Horace Grant.
Yeah.
On the Microsoft options desk.
Yeah. Well, see, when I was in the pit, on a holiday, because I was married and had kids, which was the minority, just because a lot of younger kids there, we were always there. It's not like with 4 kids, all the single guys would be gone, because they were masters. When you had a day like a Thursday, half a day, Friday off, these guys they'd look up the cheap flights back then, All right, where could we go and get a 5-6 day? And they thought, we can get a $82 flight to South Dakota or something. And they, boom, let's go to South Dakota.
Love it.
So in the pits, it was kind of, there wasn't many people around. Most people took off. But as I said, on a slow day sometimes, on low volume, you'd be there reading the newspaper. You're like, wait a second, we're down 1%. How did that happen? So it's not like volume sometimes would be dried up, but it's like you got to be, I still remember a lot of days. It's like, wow, my deltas are way off. I didn't think we moved 1% or something. So I think you can't just think that Thursday is going to be a nothing burger. It could be, but
those guys in that pre-internet phase, like when they were gone, if you had responsibility still, did you have responsibility for the Greeks? Like, did you need to manage that stuff when you were gone?
When you were with a group, you always had somebody do it, but sometimes there would be, if no one was around, what you would do is, if you were at home and you had no one to watch your positions, so what I would do is, again, you had the phone, right? But literally the phone that was connected to the wall at the house, right? So you could pick up the phone, and what I would do is, what I liked is, you'd call the pit, right? And I'd call the broker. Let's say I was in IBM. I'd call Cliff. Cliff was the broker. I'd say, Cliff, here's where I'm at. If IBM goes to this point, I need to buy some puts, in her. So But what was great is he would know and he would get you a good price, but he was the one, he stood in there all day. So you just tell him what you want to do, or if you wanted to, let's say, do some calendars or something, you just Cliff do 10 calendars or 50, whatever it was. So it was more your relationship. Back then, what was nice, you could call the pits directly. I mean, you still could, like if you had in the community people trading bigger double calendars or something bigger, you could set up a relationship where you could call SPX today, right? I mean, you could call up, for the bigger customers, you could call up the pit, which is kind of nice, right? I'm not sure though if it's really that much edge, right? Because it's to me something about, I don't want it to screw up. I don't need a guy on the phone saying, you know what, looks like more buyers or sellers or this. Then I might start turning more. I might not listen to the test, right? And
that's it.
That is noise, and it's noise because they're dealing with 10-second decisions or 20, right? That's their. So I'd almost rather not deal, because you think about it. If you go in with a double calendar on a calendar, and you're not getting filled at $5, but you get filled at $5.10 debit, right? That's fair value right then and there. I don't need the guy in the pit to tell me, Dan, I got you $5.10. Well, I could figure, I could just go in process of elimination, get to a bid where they're going to execute you. So I'm not sure, if there's a big advantage going directly to the pit, right? And I just think it gets more noise. You could talk yourself out of something. Anyways,
I think it's interesting that, we missed a huge naming opportunity, because basically what Option Omega automation is basically Cliff. It's the thing on the pit that says, like, you call it and you say, hey, if we get to this level, do this thing and try to get me a good price.
You're right.
And the automation says, I got you, boss. I got you. Listen, enjoy the vacation day. Enjoy the family time. We got you.
When you think about having an automated schedule of trades in a way, it's like you've got people representing you that you're not paying for. Well, you're paying, but you don't have to be around, right? You can get a phenomenal fill
right
in the backyard, right? As long as you, and that's, I think, and that's what's great about automation is, you think about pet peeves with execution. I can't tell you how many people I've come across, retail traders over the years. Did you have an order in? No. Well, how do you know you couldn't have got filled? To me, that's the cardinal sin of trading. Obviously it's taken care of with mechanical trading, but in non-mechanical trading is most people are too sloppy. They don't have an order in, and you may get one chance. Wouldn't you say with double calendar, sometimes you're looking at it and saying, wow, I got filled. There's no way I'd get that filled now, but I got filled in the morning when when SPX went down and the volatilities went up. I got nailed on that. Now it's $1 away. So I just think it's, to not have an order in is criminal to me.
To your point about the how it might not be an edge at this point to have someone on the floor. There's a brokerage that will remain unnamed for today's talk, but there's a brokerage, and Matt can speak more to this because he's had to deal with it a little bit. Depending on your size, depending on, I think, the lunar session, depending on a bunch of stuff.
If Mercury is in retrograde, I think
that's right. Matt, and you can correct me, they'll flip your order and they'll send it to the pit.
I don't even want to correct you. I'll just say it like this because I think I know where you're going. There are user settings that the users can enable on the brokerage side of making orders still manual or automatic. And that's on the, that's on the user to understand the size they're trading at and how their brokerage deals. Cause there's lots of different brokers out there.
But at a default size, if you don't unclick it, they'll send it to the pit.
I don't want to speak to that with enough confidence, to be honest. So
sure. There are brokers.
There's the potential. Yeah, there's the potential. And I mean, people should remember these are complex systems. You have, to the point we have the automation platform at OO or other platforms people are using are communicating with the brokers, and then you have the exchange communicating with the brokers, and then the brokers communicating back with the platforms. There's a tech stack there that's like, it's complex. So that is the nice thing about automation, is it in general it simplifies things, and you should understand it, but you don't have to spend all your time thinking about it. That's to your point. Well,
and that idea though is interesting to me. The idea that there are still systems that send orders to a pit.
Yeah.
And that it's not, there's part of me that's like, there's the nostalgic part that loves Dan, and like a little child just sits at his feet because I want to hear these stories all day long. There's a part of me, it's like, well, that would be really cool. That would be cool to get your order go to the broker. And everything I've ever heard about it in the last year or two is like, that's the last thing you want your order to do, because the fills are terrible.
Yeah,
that's right.
And
things have changed. Like we used to have, it was called not held order. So you'd give it to a broker. You don't want a market order, because market order is just saying, hey, I'm in trouble. Please, wherever you kind
of. That was your dream, right?
Yeah.
That was your dream. It's like,
someone say, please get me out. We'll help you. Yes, we'll help you. But not held order, you give it. I used to do this all the time. If I was at home, I'd give the broker in the pit a not held order. Only if you knew the broker and he was in that pit. So it was the IBM broker. It wasn't like somebody would have to walk into the IBM crowd, traveling broker, and do it. So to give those guys a not help, like to give an SPX guy, who Tasty has a broker in the pit that they will use. If you said to me, would you give a not held order? Not held basically means, Troy, fill the order, do the best you can. So you're giving him some edge because he's in there 8 hours a day. He knows the flow, and he could at least get you, try to get you a good order. Now, with all that being said, is that if we took Troy and going in at 10 double calendars every day, or single calendars in the pit every day, going through the broker, Tasty Trades broker in the pit, versus Matt going strictly mechanical, if you said to me at the end of a month, Troy should be better, getting better fills, I'd be, no, I'm not. No, I don't.
That makes sense.
I don't, Matt still, and then Matt could say, well, look, I didn't do any extra work. I just put the stinking order in. Troy had to be on the phone with the guy, and these guys, it's just,
I think
you're dealing with, would you rather deal with the human or the machine?
Yeah.
In most of those cases, especially today, again, it's different.
It's
more
changing.
Today. It's
yeah. And it's going to keep changing. Personal story. Yesterday I was not on the show. Had a medical thing. I'm fine. Everybody's fine. It was scheduled. It's fine. But I wasn't on the show, and mostly.
Do you call haircuts medical things?
No, the haircut was before that.
Okay.
It was getting. Listen, we could spend a whole segment on the heat wave. It's too hot for all that. So, I don't have a lot of profit target trades anymore, just because they're not as good. I still have a couple, and so I was at this medical thing and had a trade automated on the OO platform, and looked at my phone, and the trade actually hit a profit target in the shoulder session in the morning, which this is, a broker that didn't used to do shoulder sessions, I guess, and like whatever.
Describe shoulder session for the crew.
Yeah.
Shoulder session. So SPX is getting pretty nuanced in terms of trading outside of normal trading hours, which we would call RTH, regular trading hours. So normally you've got SPX that opens at 9:30, and then the 0-day closes at 4, and then there's all sorts of different things outside of that. So there's a shoulder session from multi DTE And actually, it's not. I guess you probably wouldn't even technically call it a shoulder session from 4 to 4:15, where multi-day trades still can happen. You can still hit profit targets. Liquidity is way different there. And then there's some brokers like IB, you can trade SPX most of the night. Again, liquidity is very different. And then there's a couple brokers now that are doing like a morning pre-market session where you can also trade SPX. And that's what I would call a shoulder session that starts at like 8 or 8:30 and then goes to like 9:25. They take a 5-minute huddle and then kicks off again at 9:30. So there's all these different ways now that didn't used to exist. And to the point, Troy, I think the vibe from OIC and other places that we've heard is that that's going to become more and more common. And so I had an order that had a profit target that was a GTC order, good till close. So it was on during a shoulder session and hit a profit during the shoulder session. And that was a nice feeling at the medical appointment when I looked and I was like, oh, well, that's one less thing to think about today. So the point of the story is that wouldn't have happened 6 months ago because that broker didn't have that shoulder session.
Hey, Matt, you mentioned you don't use many PT targets anymore. What's the main reasoning?
Just because they don't backtest as well. And I do a lot of time spreads. So time spreads in general, there are some, but not as many as I used to. It used to be everything had a PT, and now a lot fewer things do. And so, my condors, which I'm not doing a ton of short condors these days, some short condors and long condors, a lot of times will still have profit targets, fewer profit targets on the time spread. So in general, what I'm saying is it used to be that every trade I had a profit target. And now, just based on years of doing this in the back testing, has just informed me that on a lot of trades, they do better without profit targets. And indeed, this year, there were a lot of time spreads. There's no the max loss or the max profit is theoretical on both. Like it just is. You could have a new max loss or a new max profit at any time the trade is on with the time spread. Is that fair to say, Dan? Like you could see a condition that could cause a max loss or max profit that we've never seen before on a calendar, depending on if something crazy happened in the market. You think that's a fair statement? I mean, that's what happened. I will say that's what happened in the profit side in April is I had some time spreads that went to 200%. And I think they had never previously gotten above 60, but just that vol, the combination of the vol and the movement was so crazy. Yeah.
In an unusual situation like that, because I remember you were saying you actually got filled on those. It's not right. You got filled on yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, they were real prices. So.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of things that are good and not good, I love, Rusty calls me the king of segues because Picasso, look at that Picasso.
The Paul Blart of back testing.
That's right. We talked yesterday about putting type of spread trades on credit spreads for a small account that you can get away from PDT, but they're also not 0 day, right? And so, we looked at one yesterday, and I entitled it "Don't Do This," and we continue on with that this morning. So, let me learn how to share my screen like a human being. Okay, can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay, so. Don't do this, and thankfully, I think with this trade, most people will understand. Like, well, I don't want to do this. But we've improved it since yesterday because yesterday was even worse. And what is this, Matt? You weren't here yesterday.
I wasn't
for your haircut or medical.
The haircut was this weekend.
Okay,
the haircut, the shave, cutting myself. That was all this weekend.
Cutting myself.
That's the battle scars right here. It's just
how he adds it with haircut, cutting myself. Yeah.
I change my razor out like once a year. So when I get a new razor, it comes in hot. So for about the first month after I use it, it's battle damage.
Troy, I promise this won't be a far rabbit trail, but when I was younger, when my dad do they still have them? These septic pencils, when you would cut yourself shaving, and you didn't want to go on the bus to school with, toilet paper or whatever on your face with the cut. It was these septic pencils, and it just sting. You just put it on there, wet it. Do you ever? I don't know if they still have those for.
Well,
Those were wonderful. I mean,
shout out Paw, rest in peace, my grandpa. He was the youngest barber in the 50s
Are you
in the state of Texas to be a master barber. So
wow.
he was
That was a
17.
license, right? Like he probably had a
he was
certificate
17
on the wall.
Basically, he had a PhD in barbering at 17, but he said how he would do it. They would do it is you'd get balloons. You'd blow up balloons with shaving cream, and you had to shave the balloon without cutting it. That was part
and
of
he did it at 17.
Yeah.
So he was like the LeBron James. They knew early he was going to be the second best of all time.
Yeah.
And,
well,
I mean, just skipped high school, went straight into the profession, and just top of his game for years.
Top of the game.
Troy, I love that. A balloon, just the imagery of putting the shaving cream in the balloon, and you had to do it without it popping. But anyway,
and it's not like these Gillette razors. I mean, that's a straight shave.
Yeah,
they're straight shaving at that point.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. So I'm gonna back to regularly scheduled. So what have we done to improve this trade since yesterday?
Okay, I didn't see it yesterday, but
okay,
I see a 50% drawdown on a one lot.
Yeah.
Woo!
Exactly. I'll show you this trade, why it's interesting and why it still needs to be improved. Okay. So I'm going to go 100,000. I'm going to take that off. I'm going to do 5%. I'm going to run that. Okay. While we're running that, what we did basically is the premise for this test is anytime my voice is going away in real time. Anytime there's a 0.4% move, I think 0.3 or 0.4% move down, we sell a 35 delta 3-day put spread. Okay. Matt, what do you think of this so far?
I mean, so here's how I approach a backtest. Is what is the thesis? And I have to remind myself to keep doing that. I actually had a discussion with somebody asked a question on the Discord last night, and got like 5 different people, including myself, helping them. I probably shouldn't have even jumped in. And there was a discussion back and forth. And I remember thinking, okay, what's the thesis? And what's the thesis of this? So we're opening, we're floating the entry because we want to catch a move down, but not too big a move down. Is that the idea?
That's exactly right.
And we want an RSI, a min 55. So we don't want to be in.
That's what we've added this morning.
So the thesis I would just say is you're trying to catch a move down. You're trying to JSP, just sell a put.
Dan, that's what it is. There it is. Okay, Dan asked me yesterday. Dan was asking me some option mega lingo, and he said JSP. I said, you'll have to ask Matt for that one. I don't know what that is.
Okay, just so
So your JSP, you're not closing it. So it's also another ride or die. Like there's no your risk. Your risk is this. It's the width of the spread minus the credit that you've received. I like the simplicity of it. It definitely has sequence risk. The other thing, I have not seen this. So the other thing I would say, my first thought, and I'm not trying to fix it, make it better, whatever, but I kind of also am. My first thought is, because it's 3 DTE every day, you might have sequence risk. So you are subject to having a couple move down days in a row.
I want to address.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
No, go.
This is very transparent, guys.
But we will
just get on and cook.
Yeah, we just go. Yeah, but we will talk about. I would argue that this isn't sequence risk, but we can talk about that in a second.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so I would personally speaking, I would love to find more multi-DT trades that are ride and die with positive expectancy. Just would love that. So you uncapped it and the drawdown's 20% now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. Again, whenever you're looking said this a billion times, say it a billion more. Whenever you're looking at drawdown, have to look at in context of what the allocation is. So a 20% drawdown with a 5% allocation on your portfolio. So if you make the allocation 10% or 20%, it's going to change the test. Likewise, it's interesting if you're at a starting capital of 100. So if you cap it at a one lot, I don't know what that would do either. But yeah, I'm serving up a Yappuccino here because I already finished my first cup of coffee. But to conclude the Yappuccino, I would say the thesis is this. It makes sense that you want to sell premium when premium is juicing. And because you have a max move down and a minimum VIX of 55, you don't want to do it in a market that's taking the elevator down. You know, that's falling off the wagon. You want to do it in a market that has some semblance of stability.
Well, and you don't want it in a total juiced. You know, you're careful what it looks like to me. You want it in a trending up market, but you don't want what was the maximum opening down, Troy? 0.4? Maximum 0.4%. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you want controlled VIX. You don't want, if we open down 80 points, you'd say, well, VIX will pop 3 points. We don't want that, right? So you want a little more controlled.
Yeah. And this is based on an intraday move down, right? We're doing a move down here.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, that's intraday.
Yeah.
Okay, intraday move. But still you want kind of a quieter
controlled.
Control, and and the RSI is saying you want it in an uptrend, right? You still want it to be, is that what the RSI?
That's right. That's exactly right. It's like basically you're saying it's in some ways it's actually describing the market right now. Right? It's like I don't know what the RSI is this morning, but the idea of saying, hey, we are in an uptrending market. I think it's fair to say, for everybody who has a VIX call, they'd say, we're in an uptrending market. And so the idea of saying, okay, in this type of market, on any moves down intraday, this trade assumes they're going to get bought up in the next 3 days.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the thesis,
Yeah.
And then it's just a question of, and again, I don't know if it can be met better or not, but the idea of saying, well, are we, if that's the thesis, is there a way to improve upon this thesis?
Yeah. I mean, my first question is what is the delta and width selection, and how is that selected? Because like just that concept alone, I mean, if we have this thesis that we want kind of a multi DTE trade, and where did the 3-day come about? I don't know. I mean, there might be some math or some reasoning behind that.
Well,
it's
it
super
depends.
Interesting.
The answer to that largely depends on what you think's in this cup. That's the question.
There's definitely air in the cup.
If you think there's coffee in this cup,
I'll go fresh orange juice.
Mm.
Good thought.
Could have parts of it. Anyway,
could have parts of it.
Is it a mimosa?
I don't know. I don't know what's in the cup, but I'll say this is my fifth one.
Okay.
But the idea simply was to say, I don't like personally low delta credit spreads.
Yeah. Right.
That's a good point.
Two, I don't. The days you just kind of start testing days. I mean, that's the reality.
Yeah.
And so I came upon 3-day and it tested better than 2-day.
Well, I bet there's somebody in the chat who can extrapolate why mathematically. I mean, we've been since 2022. I mean, we had a down year. We've had some big down moves, but overall has been a bullish market. And I mean, it makes sense that you just give 3 days as the, after 3 days, there's a good chance of recovering to some degree. And because you're 35 delta, I mean, people use the terms high delta, low delta, medium delta. I'd call that like a medium delta trade. Again, those aren't technical terms. There's different definitions, but in a medium delta trade, even if it continued downward, you don't need it to get back to where it was when you went to trade. You just need to get it above, where your short is. Like, in the last example, it's 26 points below. So give yourself a little bit of room. It can handle a little pullback. Super interesting concept that, Troy, commendation, because of all the talk of JSP on OO, which I think there's probably 500 JSP backtests that have been shared. I don't think I've seen a lot of multi DTE, and like that may be part of the secret sauce. This may be the white sauce on the chicken.
When you say
this may be it.
When you say JSP, does that mean just put? Does that mean they're doing naked? These
it's I mean, it's just you could call it JSPS.
They're lazy and they don't want the JSPS. They don't.
Sometimes there's an extra letter added to just sell puts, which is not appropriate for the discussion. But I would say JSPS would be fine. JSPS has a nice ring to it too, but yeah. So just sell put spreads, or just sell some sort of buy the dip by selling premium is, I think, is probably the best way to. I would extrapolate. I don't own the concept,
But when you say that a medium to high delta, like 35 to 40 delta for the short, I look at two things. One, it could be a better risk. People would feel comfortable that it is better risk reward, right? Number one. Number two, the other thing is versus, let's just say you have two camps, right? Camp one, and I'm sure like maybe multiple MEIC, is it called MEIC?
Yeah.
Iron condors. Okay, you're going to do a 10 delta, right? I like those too, but you have high probability, but you give up the risk reward.
Yep.
But where I like these higher delta, not just, I think you have two camps. Do you want to do what type of put credit spreads? Do you want to go with high probability, low risk reward, or good risk reward and low probability? But what I like about the 35 delta or the 40 is, let's face it, if Troy puts on a 10 delta put credit spread right now, Matt does a 35 delta put credit spread, and the market immediately goes up, well, the person with the higher delta is going to do better, right? Because it's a bigger credit, right? Technically, right? It's a bigger credit, and you put less capital into it too, right? Because your margin is going to be lower. So if you're really, if you're looking, hey, I think we're going up, to do a 10 delta put credit spread isn't necessarily for me. It's kind of I don't want it to go there. It's like, I want a lot of room, because if I thought it was really going up in the next hour, why would I sell a 10 delta? I'd want to sell a 30 delta or a 40 delta.
That's right.
Get more beef. So I think it goes to, like Matt said, the thesis. What are you thinking about? But I think a lot of people, some are more comfortable. I've seen people much more comfortable with a 10 delta. Some wouldn't even consider a 10 delta. They have to go a 30 delta iron condor, like on 0 day. I see people love 30 delta iron condor for a 0 day. People love 10 delta. But what I've noticed is those two communities, at least because it's a mindset, the 10 delta people are like, you're crazy. There's no way I'm doing a 30 delta. And the 30 delta says, I wouldn't even think about doing a 10 delta. It's the mindset. But the thing is, the nice thing is they both can work, right? It's what are you comfortable with?
I think that's exactly right. And so you've got the 10 delta guys, and you got the 30 delta guys, and then you got the 80 delta guys. Shout out to the 80.
Oh my gosh. Don't backtest 80 delta.
Don't backtest 80 delta is the joke of that.
Put $1 billion slippage, and then you can.
I made $1 zillion with zero drawdown. And all you have to do is sell these or buy these 90 delta. Anyway, so Rob asked a great question that I would like to talk about. And Tom just gave the thing. So Rob, you talked about this last week. Shout out Rob and Maria. Go listen to that show. We're going to have them on again, Lord willing, because people really, the power that would come from this show for Dan and Rob to be on at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I couldn't touch Rob. Rob's
listen,
he's great.
It would be awesome. But Rob, here's my thought on it. 12 delta, just personally speaking, personally as a trader, it's not my thing. but I understand completely why it would be your thing, because a 12 delta, in my mind, when you get to those lower deltas like that, what you're trading is pure mathematical edge. Like that's what you're trading.
Right.
And
That's
so
right.
you know your risks, and it's a numbers game. You're putting it on every day.
That's right.
Let the numbers play out, all the things. So then it's just a question of how do you manage your risks with what,
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's probably how people who make a lot of money in options
Yeah.
make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I also know that's how a lot of retail traders blow up. And that's that balancing act, is they can't handle the emotion of what a low delta looks like during a drawdown.
Yeah.
Risk management versus no risk
I
management.
mean,
Yeah.
guys, you realize at some point in the near future, we're going to have to talk about what Troy just said in the structure of these 1-1x trades, like a 1-1-2 trade, a 1-1-1 trade, 2-2-1 trade, where people have a naked put that's a low delta put. Because I don't think we've ever talked about it on the show. It'll happen at some point in the future. Stay tuned.
Yeah, but I don't want to disparage the trading style, because
No.
and Dan knows it. Like, it's such a numbers game that if you can be non-emotional about it, it's in my mind, that's like the most guaranteed edge in options, is selling low delta.
Well, most people we always favored more 10, 12, 15 was high.
Interesting.
But again, it was for the reasons Troy said. But I would talk to Tom Sosnoff, friend over at Tasty Trade. He never would go. He was more, at least with Iron, they would do more the good risk reward, maybe sell a 25 delta Iron Condor or credit, 25 to 30. But you know what? They're both fine. They're just different. Like you said, Troy, they're different mindset. If you're more of a numbers person, the 10 delta, the 15, 15 was a high delta. I mean, I would say, 15 was like, I'd be getting a little risky.
Get a little nuts.
15 delta.
Get a little nuts.
But then you get the people I'm doing a 25, 30 delta. For me, let me just say one last comment. If you're weak, if you're not as experienced in,
I love just stay. Oh man, I love that.
If you're not as experienced in risk management, right, and you're not as comfortable, not that you can't be experienced in risk management, do a high delta, but if you're doing if you're not really comfortable with your risk management skills, if something goes against you, doing a 10 or 12 delta, I would not recommend. I mean, if you said to me, what would I recommend for someone new? Get them as high stinking delta as they can, because you know what? If it goes against them and they faint, they're out less money. But if you're doing a 10 wide put credit spread and you're bringing $1 and you got $900 of risk, there's more responsibility. You have to know, okay, where am I going to pull the plug here, right? Whereas if you're selling a 30 delta put credit spread or 40 delta put credit spread, if the worst happens and the smoke clears, you may still be in business, right?
And that's the thing. That's exactly right. And so, I think of it as like 12 delta is like sniper. Like you have to know what you're doing. You've got a limited range, a very powerful gun, but a limited type of gun, but you're very, very good at that gun. Whereas I think, higher delta stuff, that's the infantry guys. That's the guys that you can make a good living just selling, close to stuff if you find an edge there. And then there's guys like me that I don't know if you've ever heard of David Goggins, a very famous, I'm that guy. You
are David Goggins.
Well, I've said that for years. That 1-1-2, the idea of a 1-1-2, in my mind, it's 1-1-10, but the 10 is you're buying puts, and you're sitting there saying, who's going to carry the boats and the logs? Who's gonna
mile 50?
That's right. And so, in my mind, it's all different types. There's tons of different edges. It's about, I've said this before, we'll say it every day almost. It's about what you psychologically can handle.
Yeah.
much more than edge.
But Troy, wouldn't you say real quick that if you're, let's just say someone's saying, I'm going to do directional credit spreads during the day just based on the charts. I'm just going just strictly directional. You'd be crazy to use low delta, right?
Yeah.
If it's strictly directional and you're going with the move, then I would go with a higher delta because I want a bigger credit. I want to make some money. But if you're doing it for the math and for the probabilities,
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah. If you're doing it for that's perfect. Yeah. If you're doing it for the probabilities, then, you have a system in place that you've back tested, you have data on, and you're rolling with it and you take your emotions out. If you have a theory to say, hey, I buy the dip, like this trade, if you buy, I'm selling the dip, whatever you want to call it. I'm going long on any dips in this type of market, then this is something that you would consider. But those are two different mindsets, two different types of edge.
So this would be more directional than probability.
For
Agreed?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Course.
Yeah.
High
So
delta.
math is life. Shout out, Rob. So listen, guys, take this test and make it better. I promise you, this is not optimized. Be like, well, you did the 35 delta. Clearly, Troy, you give me too much credit. There could be much better deltas than this.
There are. You can go on record. There's gonna be better deltas than this. There's better widths.
Yes, there's better things to do with this. So please find them, and we will give you glory and name the test after you. So anyway, listen, guys, we have a show tomorrow, and then we have a show Thursday, and then last question: what's your favorite firework?
Oh, Dan, I've got strong feelings. So
what would you?
Well, I have two. This is not a firework, so that's why I have two. But I used to love the poppets that you could pop.
Those are great. Yeah,
they're great. And we used to at the school picnic every year. Shout out to my elementary school, which will remain nameless. We used to get them at the school picnic, and we were only allowed to throw them at each other's shoes. But that was great. Always look forward to that. And then I'm gonna choose what I feel like is an underdog, which is the worm. Again, not really a firework, but kind of a firework. The little black thing you just light on fire and it worms. I love those things. So
wow,
lots of choices. I'm going pop it and worm. And Friday, 3-day weekend, I'm gonna commit to getting some of them this year.
Dan?
I'm gonna just, instead of I like the ones that that go up in the air and then it just kind of goes. Those are more expensive, but I will say this: maybe the most fun I ever had in my entire life was one time. Right, took about $900. It was for a church. We were doing it at outdoor, and they picked me. Go take your sons. Go to some place in Indiana, on the border of Indiana, Illinois. It's like a grocery store for firecrackers.
Like Gary.
I was, like Gary. And I'll tell you, I never had, to be in the adrenaline, the dopamine or whatever you say, it was better than a run. If you ran 5 miles, being in there, a grocery cart, and you go up to the guy and you say, hey, what should I get? And he had this little laptop. Look at this. I'll show you pictures. I'm like, yes, can I have 2 of those? And next thing I know, I'm like $1,400 of stuff. I go, wait. I went way over budget. Let's go back. But it's to be in a grocery store. I want to encourage people. If you've never been in one of these grocery stores of crackers and stuff, have you ever been in one, Troy? They are exhilarating. and it's just, you
not
go
Gary,
down
but
these
yes.
aisles, they're huge, and they've got, whatever you want.
Yes.
If you want to spend $300 on one shot that goes up in the air and like a professional show, but it's just exhilarating.
I would say, in my opinion, there's a lot of them, and we'll end on this note. It's tough. You've got whistling bungholes, you've got spleen splitters, you've got whisker biscuits, you've got honky lighters.
Wow.
You've got Husker do's, Husker don'ts, you have cherry bombs.
Man, he's a professional.
He is.
You've got a whistling kitty chase. You've got all of them. So anyway.
What's your number one?
Going to bed and telling them to shut up. That's my number one. as I get older. So on
Why
that
the
note,
worm is? Can I present the worm as a viable option for a firework?
I hear you. Listen, shout out. We'll be back tomorrow, guys. Have